being House Speaker if the Republicans take over the House. He's the one who would actually have power of those three. That's why the White House is going after him like this.
Is it? I know it's as old as I feel stupid asking the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I feel like I know the answer, but it just irritates me. Basically, neither Republicans nor Democrats want to deal with any actual problems in this country, and so they just make the guy look like a bunch of jackasses. So if I can make Boehner look like a jackass, if I can make Pelosi look like a jackass, the Republicans never or rarely talk about what they're actually going to do, what they actually want to do. The Democrats rarely, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, actually do anything beyond placate the sympathies of those who are suffering without actually addressing the core reason why they are suffering. And the easiest way to make a living is to just make the other guy look like a jackass.
Which is why I think the Democrats are potentially missing an opportunity here. Listen, Boehner has said he's willing to extend the middle-class tax cuts. Let Democrats take him up on it. Have Nancy Pelosi bring him in, say we're actually in agreement on something for once, and then force him to go back to his party and cut his deal there. That would show the American people who are so sick of Washington, who are so sick of both parties, as you often articulate, that they're actually capable of getting something done.
This is really just a sideshow. I mean, look, the template for this election in November, I think, has been set. It's not going to be a good one for Democrats. This is maybe there's not a great hand if you're a Democrat, but this at least we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Here's what we're not talking about: 9.6% unemployment.
I get it. No, I
so
think
it's a public relations
It forces
move.
me to not talk about what I want to talk about.
Exactly.
We've got to talk about John Boehner and whether the Democrats think he's stupid or not.
And Rush Limbaugh and Sarah Palin is played out. This is a new guy, and so it's interesting.
I want to switch to a subject that at least is a little more compelling for me, because I think John Boehner, I have the whole thing, I'm just like, but there is an issue with cohesion in the Democratic Party, which you and I were talking about earlier, Alicia, relative to certainly tension around legislation and an emerging further deterioration in any cohesion in the conservative side of the room. We saw it in Alaska. I mean, I go down these lists. Now there's one member that was threatened a death threat on another member in Delaware today. Is that right, Matt?
It was the chairman of the Republican Party received a death threat. He's supporting.
Well, no, explain. Who received a death threat?
He's the chairman of the Delaware Republican Party.
From who?
From an emailer.
From a Democrat, though, or from another? We don't know.
We don't know. This guy's name's Tom Ross.
It's presumably
it's from a conservative who's unhappy because the Delaware Republican Party is helping moderate Rep. Mike Castle against Tea Party candidate Christine O'Donnell.
So where is the schism?
So here's, interestingly, the schism is, up until now, we've had all of these Tea Party candidates, conservatives who've won elections, Mike Lee in Utah, Rand Paul in Kentucky, Marco Rubio. But we're getting to the point now where instead of it being a conservative versus establishment Republican schism, it's actually sort of conservative on conservative hate crimes now. And I've seen it happen with conservative writers like Mark Hemingway, Jim Garrity at National Review, John McCormick at Weekly Standard. Conservatives are attacking conservative writers for pointing out that this candidate in Delaware.
But how much of that, Matt, is a function of the fact that what it means to be, if I ask them, I say, are you conservative? They say, yes, I am a conservative. Right. I say, well, what does it mean that you're a conservative? And one will say to me, it means that I believe in limited government interference with business. I believe in limited government interference in social, and like stay out of my bedroom and stay out of my bank account. Yeah. Eisenhower. I go to another one, I say, what does it mean that you're a conservative? It means that all government is bad, and it means that is there clarity, and not that you speak for the conservative, I don't mean to put you in as
I actually do speak for the conservative movement.
Just so they know, put Matt Lewis up next to Boehner on the thing for the, do you have any insight that maybe we don't have, and I want to get you guys in here? But
well, and first of all, if anybody's interested in what a conservative is, I'll point them to Russell Kirk's The Conservative Mind, where he actually goes through, I think, a bullet points of like 7 to 10 things: belief in a transcendent moral order, a belief that freedom and economic prosperity are tied, things that you don't hear in sound bites typically on TV. But look, I mean, it's a point well taken. There's no das Kapital, there's no dogma for us to follow. You're a conservative if you say you're a conservative. The problem is, frankly, during the entire Bush years, conservatism was pretty much destroyed. We're still trying to figure out exactly what it is we believe in and who's a conservative. And you know what? We're going to win elections this year, but we're still fighting about what it means to be conservative.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think this identity crisis has had a partisan effect. You have 7 candidates who are endorsed by the NRSC who have lost their primary elections. 2 of them incumbents. One of them, Mitch McConnell.
For those who don't know what NRSC is.
I'm sorry, the National Republican Senate committee.
Yeah, and it's
election
unbelievable.
speak.
Unbelievable that all of these endorsed Republicans who would normally win 99.9% of the time are losing.
Jonathan, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sitting here fascinated listening to this but there's something else here in terms of the split within the GOP and the conservatism as we're seeing played out in what Newt Gingrich had to say in response to that Forbes magazine piece by Dinesh D'Souza talking about President Obama and how President Obama thinks. I think the Republican Party is going to have to come to terms at some point with these sort of fringe voices. And Newt Gingrich used to be Speaker of the House, and the idea that he is espousing sort of xenophobic birther language when it comes to the President of the United States puts him on the fringe. And I think the Republican Party, if it wants to become a national party again rather than a regional one, it's going to have to stand up and say we won't stand for this.
Some of this schism, by the way, happening in Delaware right now actually has nothing to do with political ideology or philosophy. It has to do with competence. It has to do with credibility. Big election tomorrow, and some of these fights are going to be played out.
Because I consider myself a conservative. Really.
I can believe it. You know what? You are hard to pigeonhole.
Listen, you can do whatever you want. The social, I could care less. But when it comes to actual
wouldn't that make you libertarian?
No, because I guess for me, at the end of the day, the libertarians lose me when they go to the law of the jungle but refuse to actually prevent the game from being rigged. I don't think it's the law of the jungle when the game is rigged for the lions to eat everything, and then you're like, oh, law of the jungle. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more here about something a little less sort of meaty politically and more on culture here. For all the talk about the death of old media, and I'm not just trying to save my job, apparently it's not over. 57 minutes per day spent on TV, radio, and newspapers. Those have been around for quite some time, as we all know, and that's the exact same amount of time that was being spent on those types of products 10 years ago. You say, well, where is this new media? Well, the new media at this point appears to be additional time spent more than it is displaced time spent. Alicia, what's going on here?
Live to see another day. One of the things that I think is interesting on where these numbers could change in the future is that you have the millennial generation, the largest generation, my generation, that's grown up with these technologies. These are not new, and we do get our news from them. As we move into the older groups, as we start entering our 30s and our 40s, where we're larger consumers of media, I think that's where you could possibly see the flip and see more people using online to get their news.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
No, I'm fist pumping here because we've been talking for years about how newspapers and magazines and everything are going to go the way of the dinosaur, and this notion that well, we're kind of not actually makes me very happy, and I think my mom very happy too, because I'm not moving home anytime soon.
Part of it though is that Jonathan is with the Washington Post. I mean, they've been very aggressive in embracing and co-opting the new media. I mean, like take Chris Cillizza, the Fix over there, right? So he's not just writing in the newspaper. They're online. He's on Twitter. So what you have
is adaptation.
Exactly.
We all are. The adaptation.
It's the way you tweet every time we look away.
Right. All the time tweeting.
All the time. It's amazing.
It's pretty good, right?
But it does mean that you're integrating these sources and not in the hokey way that they once were, where they're like, let's bring up the Twitter, and then they would do it, and it seemed really
using a tool as opposed to saying, look, I have a hammer.
Exactly. Look, I've got the Twitter.
I take the hammer and I'm like, I go build a house.
You're building a house with
Pretty good,
Twitter.
Right? Let's figure out what a conservative is. Because I think the debate has deteriorated partially for that reason, that there's not a counter, consistent conservative voice, whatever that means, conservative, relative to the voices are so fragmented nobody knows. Anyway, my opinion, it's my show, so I'm allowed. It's a pleasure. And really nice to see you guys. Wonderful to have you guys here, because you actually make the show better. If it was just me, it would just be me. Jonathan, you want to show us the fist pump, the Washington Post fist pump? That's like it, baby. That's it. They can eat it. Coming up on our